would encourage them to seek others like them. I've met so many people that are like me locally. I even have started a grief group for anyone who's lost someone from substance use.
This episode of The Recovery Couch is brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today and tell him The Recovery Couch sent you.
He ended up getting into an apartment. I'm having trouble remembering. It was very close together. I can't remember if he was in the apartment yet or not. I don't think he was. It was a couple weeks after that incident. I get a call from the hospital. He's at Miami Valley Hospital. He had ran his car head on into a parked car because he was huffing while he was driving. The guy that witnessed it said he was probably going about 55 miles per hour. Blake said he remembered the guy saying, "You have to breathe, you have to breathe." So I'm guessing he was not breathing. And if that guy wouldn't have been there to, who knows what would have happened. So I go to Miami Valley to pick him up. I said, "Listen, this is our third thing in a short amount of time. I think this was on purpose." He told me all the time that he didn't want to be alive. They just looked at him and they said, "Was this on purpose?" And he's like, "No." So then they sent me home with him. He didn't have any charges from that or anything. He was working. He found an apartment with the girlfriend. And they were definitely doing drugs together, drinking, but he was going to work every day. He was paying his bills. So, he's out. There's nothing I can say. One night, off and on through all of this, I started taking him to NA meetings probably when he was about 17 years old. I met some wonderful people there who were super supportive of me and him. He was still struggling to be sober, but trying. I think he was always in this constant battle of, I want to be good, but I don't want to feel my feelings. Him and his friends were partying one night, and this friend of his called him and asked him for a ride home. He was at a bar, and Blake is somebody who didn't want to let anybody down. So he was going to go pick him up even though he was drunk, and he got in a fight with his best friend and his girlfriend. So they called the police on him. Well, he had tried to choke his girlfriend. He had hit his best friend. And so they charged him with domestic violence. So they took him to jail. The girlfriend called me and said he was arrested last night. This is what happened. He was tearing apart the apartment. And they really called not for their safety, but they were worried about him hurting himself. And Blake said he remembers telling the cops to just shoot me, just kill me, and one of the cops was of color, and he kept calling him names, which this was not Blake. And actually, while Blake was in jail, he saw that police officer and he said, "That is not me. That is not me. I am so sorry that I don't think those things." And the police officer said, "I remember you. You were pretty messed up. Like, it's okay." But so he ended up in jail. They take him to, I don't know, like the next morning when these are your charges or whatever. And of course, in Blake fashion, he says, "Yep, I did it." And I was like, oh my God, like you can't plead guilty to a charge like that. He did. And the judge was like, you have had all the DUI, you've had all these things, and it seems like nothing has ever happened. Like you've never been really punished for it. And they sentenced him to 18 months in jail. At first, I was freaking out. Like, I didn't go to the court hearing because he'd been let go every other time. So I was just like, well, Dad and his dad will bring him home. And because my dad went, and my dad called me at work and was like, "You need to sit down." And so he told me, and there's so many mixed feelings about it because, I know nothing about jail. So I'm like, that's scary for one. And sad because, the holidays were coming and, there's just so many emotions. But ultimately, I wrote the judge a letter and I thanked him for putting him in jail. Even though at first it was hard because my son called me and he's like, "Get me out, Mom, get me out. You got to get me out." And I was like, "You pled guilty. I can't get you out." I did call an attorney and he's like, there's nothing I can do. "Get me out. There's this guy in here and he came in and he was withdrawing and they beat the crap out of him. Like, get me out, get me out." And I couldn't. So, the judge, responded to me well, probably his secretary or whatever. And she said, he wants you to know he doesn't plan on keeping him the full 18 months, but he would like him to complete some drug programs, and then he will be released into an inpatient rehab. That was the goal. Then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, he went to jail in the end of November. It was maybe beginning of December, and he was released the week that everything shut down for COVID. So he called me, and he had completed multiple programs. He was on medication for his mental health. He was going to counseling there. And he called me and he said, Mom, they released me. Can you come get me? Well, they had released him from Clark County to Greene County because Greene County had charges on him for something else. I don't remember what. And then Greene County released him. And so he was not released into rehab. He was released to come home, which COVID and somebody who has mental health issues in general, plus add addiction onto it, and you can't go anywhere or do anything, what else are they going to do? So he came out and he did okay at first, but then he started slipping. And he told me he was going to be off of probation right before his 21st birthday. And he was really nervous about that. He's like I'll be 21 and I'll be able to drink, and I'm really scared about what's going to happen with that. And he had a really hard time finding a job because when you have a charge like that, nobody wants to hire you. So my husband worked at a company, and he ended up getting a job there, in which he worked there for 2 years. So he got him a job there. He was doing pretty good in the sense that, him and the girl had broken up finally. He was showing up to work every day. He was paying all his bills all by himself. He bought himself this car that he was absolutely in love with. And so there was positive things happening in his life. However, once he was off probation, he really started drinking a lot. And we talked every morning because he worked third shift, and I would go to the gym in the morning. So when I got home before the girls were ready to get ready for school, I would talk to him in the morning, and he would usually be drunk by the time I was talking to him. So one day he called me and he was super angry. So I was like, you know what? I'm coming over, because that's the kind of relationship we had. I went over, and he's in his car getting ready to go somewhere with the maintenance man from the apartment, who was also drunk at it was like 9:30 in the morning. And so I basically jumped through the passenger window and took his car keys and told him to get into his apartment right now. And so he went in, and he was so mad at me. I hate you. And I was like, you know what? I don't like you very much right now either, but you need to sit down. And so we talked, but he told me that the voices in his head would not shut up. And it's the only way that they shut up is if he's drinking or on drugs. And he wants to die. And if he dies, that I shouldn't be sad, because that's what he wants. It's the only way that the voices will stop. So I sat there with him for a long time, and then I took him. I went to go pick up. He was still taking his mental health medications. We went to go pick those up. Took him to get him something to eat. Brought him home and put him to bed. And he said, "Thank you, Mom. I love you." And I kissed him goodnight, shut his door, left his apartment, and came home. So, I don't know how far that was from the time that he passed away, but drugs was not a big part at that point in time. It was mostly alcohol, which alcohol can be just as damaging, I feel like. So we spent a lot of time together. I always felt like we talked a lot. We talked every day. And one day, this was the day before he died, we planned to go for a walk or go hiking, and he had actually overslept. And I almost said, you know what, forget it. You don't have to come. I know you're tired. And I said, why don't you just come over and we'll hang out? So I got in a new swing that summer. And so it was a pretty day. And so we're sitting on the swing and we're talking, and he's telling me about, I want to quit drinking. I want to do better. I want to have kids. I want to buy a house. I want to get married. Like I can do this. I can do this. I want this, Mom. I think I'd be a good dad. And I was like, yeah, I was always like, through all this journey, you always see these little glimpses of hope. Like, like he wants it. He wants it. So, he's going to get better, and there was little bits of sober time, but he had told me that those times, if I told him that he was doing well, that was too much pressure. So as a parent, you want to praise them because you want them to keep going, but he didn't want me to say anything at the same time. So, um, that day I kissed him on the cheek and I told him I loved him, and he left and he went to my parents and had a dinner with them, and had a great visit with them. And then he went home, and the next day he went to the fair with his dad and his siblings and had a great day with them. We all have pictures and things of that day. And then he called his dad and he said, hey, I met this guy and we're going to go down the Oregon district. Where should I park? And his dad, I don't know if he told him where to park, but he wished he would have told him not to do it. But he did. And he went down there, and we don't really know who he met or where he went for sure. But the next day I was texting him, and literally that night I had been texting him. And the last text I got from him said, I'm so stupid. That's literally the last text I got from him. So so the next day I was texting him and he wasn't answering, and I thought maybe he had stayed somewhere else or, whatever. And I asked his dad to see if his car was at his apartment, and it wasn't. And so I had just dropped my daughter off. I had texted him. He didn't answer. I dropped my daughter off at Girl Scouts. Took my other daughter to get some ice cream. Regular. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and I pull into my neighborhood, and Montgomery County pops up on my phone. And so I thought, well, that's where he's at. He's in jail. So I tell the person on the other end, I said, hang on, because I have to take my phone off Bluetooth because his little sister was in the car. And I said, hello. And he said, do you know a Blake Gambergy? And I said, yeah, he's my son. And he said, well, I've tried to call the police department a couple times. Nobody's calling me back, and I can't. We've had him for a little while, and I can't. I can't continue to let you wonder if you're looking for him. Well, we found him deceased of what we believe is a drug overdose in. They said an abandoned building, but it turned out to be somebody's apartment in West Dayton. And I could not speak. I just kept saying, what? And then I got out of my car. My hands went numb. My legs went numb. I literally fell to the ground. Meanwhile, my daughter is like, what's wrong, Mommy? What's wrong, Mommy? And she asked me, and so she goes in the house to go get her daddy because she clearly thinks, I thought I was having a stroke or something. Like I never felt anything like that in my entire life. And before my husband got outside, I somehow made it into the house. I basically crawled into the house, and the coroner was like, is there somebody else there I can talk to? And I said, yeah, my husband. So I just hand this poor man the phone who has no idea what's about to hit him. And I immediately just started throwing up. Like my body was it was just going crazy. And so it turned out he died of cocaine laced with fentanyl.
So what do you find out after that? Because as a mother, you're thinking like, why did he text me that? What are your next steps after that? I mean, are you trying to put pieces together? Or?
When we got his stuff from the funeral home, the coroner sent all his stuff. He was missing his wallet. Well, his wallet was there. He was missing his cards, any credit cards. If he had cash, it was gone. I'm thankful that they left his ID, because, people go missing and they never find their loved ones. And I don't know that I could survive that.
When you say they left the ID,
Whoever he was with, we have no idea who he was with, but his phone was missing. We just assumed that the phone was left wherever they picked him up. Like maybe they didn't grab it. My dad had a connection with a detective. So he calls this detective and asks the detective, hey, can we go look for his phone? And the detective was like, no, you cannot go in that area by yourselves. I'll send some police officers to go look, which then that didn't happen. It was a couple days later and I tried calling his phone just because I wanted to hear his voice. And I know like when your phone dies, your voicemail picks up right away. And it didn't. It rang. Somebody has his phone and they're keeping it charged. We had called the police and told them that somebody had his phone. Somebody had taken his credit card. So I had put a stop on the card, and I was hoping that would make it a little more interesting to them because, if they're going to use this kid's credit card, maybe it would be a charge of some sort that they'd have to talk to them or whatever. And the police told us, well, if you get the phone back, let us know.
this is potentially a murder investigation with evidence, cell phone evidence, credit card evidence, and they don't pursue that at all.
No, because it was an overdose. And they had
Maybe.
he had they had towed his car right away, but the keys were missing. Some people have said that they think possibly he had it was I don't know what the year is, but it was like an older Camaro, like a classic Camaro, and it was beautiful and in great condition. And some people think that maybe he was lured there to take the car. Because when my dad got into the car, he said the seat was not exactly how Blake would have had it. However, I think he went there on his own, even if he was lured there, because there is a picture that he had on Snapchat that said, it was a picture of him and it said, I'm at a crackhead's house, is what it said. So he knew where he was at. So not knew as knew the person, but he knew he was probably someplace he shouldn't be. So we ended up getting the phone back. His dad did, by talking the guy into giving him the phone back. He talked him into meeting him, and he ended up giving the car keys back also, but separate times. They had to meet him twice before he would give them everything back. But when he gave him the phone, he actually told Blake's dad that Blake had owed him money. And he said, are you asking me for the money for the drugs that killed my kid? And he said, oh, no. So.
Gosh, that's heavy. I don't know how to handle that because there's so many questions. For one, they indict people for murder for that exact thing today. If you sell somebody drugs that kills them, that is today in the state of Ohio, that's a murder charge. And how they wouldn't have investigated. What year are we talking?
2021, sorry. Do you know what I think it is? Someone did call 911 and report that he was unresponsive. And so I don't know if that falls under the Good Samaritan law.
All right. At the end of the time here, let me just ask one more question, Christina. So if there's somebody out there, we'll paint a picture. She's a young mother and her son passes away at way too young of an age of an accidental overdose. What type of encouragement would you give that person?
I would encourage them to seek others like them. That has been, I've met so many people that are like me, locally. There's so many of us locally. I even have started a grief group for that, for people who've lost. It's not just specifically parents, but anyone who's lost someone from substance use. So because I felt like for us, it's a different kind of loss. It's a different kind of loss in, some of the other groups are harder to find that where you fit. So finding other people, I'm so open about it that I will have people give people my phone number, um, and they will just immediately reach out to me. And for me, that's also because I will be 5 years out this year. But when I hear about it, it immediately hits me in the gut because I know how they feel. It feels like your soul is being ripped out of your body when you lose your children. So
I love that advice, Christina. Find like minded people who can understand your grief. Where can they find your grief group? If they're listening to this and they have a similar story, where can they find your grief group?
it's called Grasp, GRASP. I have it at the top of my Facebook page. We keep it like people have to contact me to find out where it is at. It's the first and third Tuesday of the month in Beaver Creek, but I don't give the address out because I want people, you kind of vet them, so to speak, to make sure they know what it is, and if it's a good fit for them. That's just part of the organizational rules. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Find Christina and the grief group if you need to. Sounds like she's doing amazing work. There's so much power in honesty. We heard how honest Blake was and how that affected him in a positive way throughout the entirety of his story. People appreciate truth. Christina, I appreciate you bringing this truth onto the recovery couch. I want to thank you very much.
thank you for having me.
Remember, you always have a seat right here on the Recovery Couch.
This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at South Dayton Toyota. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, call JB and his team at 513-267-5225 and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you.